Welcome back to the Halls of History, everyone. And, I wanted to take a little bit of time before I kind of talked about this, because everybody else has been going crazy on their thoughts of Bill Belichick not getting in the Hall of Fame this year. And now it's come out that Robert Kraft isn't getting in as well. And the first thing that kind of bugged me about this, one, other than the fact that people who deserve to get in didn't get in yet, and it was more of a, I thought we weren't supposed to find this out yet until the class got announced. Like, how is this getting leaked out? Who's saying something that maybe they shouldn't yet? But the obvious, Bill Belichick. If any coach is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, it's him. And I don't care what you want to say about with the cheating scandals. I'm going to get to some of that here in a minute, but Bill Belichick should have definitely gotten in. Now, as far as maybe reasoning with some of this, the one article I did see from the writer from Kansas City, some of his thoughts it makes you think of another thing that I know there's been some discussion about, something that probably needs to be changed in the voting process, and I agree with it. With him saying that he looked at the other three who are the senior nominees, Ken Anderson, L.C. Greenwood, and Roger Craig, and thought, you know what? I love all three of these guys. They may not get a chance again because, sometimes when players come up as senior nominees, if they don't get in that time, they don't exactly come up in the next go-round as a senior nominee. They may not come up again for several more years as a senior nominee and may not even come up again. And so you start to think, maybe I love all three of these guys. I want to see all three of them get what they deserve. And of course, there's also thinking, Belichick's going to get enough votes. I think my one vote is probably not going to matter that much. Turned out there were bunch of other people that didn't vote for him either. So, but that led to another discussion of, should the coaches and contributors be in the same group as the senior nominees? And I don't think that they should. Because that's where you end up getting matched up with, okay, you have a coach, Bill Belichick, that you think definitely should go in on the first shot. But then again, maybe you're looking at these three. You're also looking at Robert Kraft. Sorry, I don't have a card of Robert Kraft. And maybe you're in the same line of thinking where you're thinking, these three, I love all three of these guys. I think they deserve it. I think they should have been in by now. But which one am I not going to pick? Because I'm voting for him. Or I'm also voting for Kraft. Which ones do I now not vote for when I think that all three of these guys are eligible or should have been in? Because, okay, Ken Anderson had a great career. He did. He played at a time when you don't have all the passing rules that you do now. You can't protect the quarterback nearly as much, especially not with the second you get even a glancing brush across the head, they're going to throw a flag for it. At this point, he could get his head ripped off and the ref would just look at you and say, "You still breathing?" Basically. He won so many awards in 1981 when the Bengals got to their first ever Super Bowl. And if it hadn't been for an unbelievable goal line stand by the 49ers, he might have won that game and possibly would have been the game MVP as well if the Bengals had won that. 4 times he led the league in quarterback rating, which at that time, if you were able to get a number into the 80s, that meant you had a good year. And the 4 times he led the league, he was in the 90s. Once up around 98, a couple of times at 95. One, I think, was 93.9. And back then, again, it was so much harder to have a high efficiency rating. So much harder than what it is now. When you have quarterbacks that, someday down the road, you're going to think, "Man, they really weren't that good. How in the world did they have a quarterback rating of over 100? And this is before QBR, folks. Okay, let's just put it that way. This is before ESPN's QBR. So you have that. Again, led the Bengals from being, this expansion team that, okay, yeah, Paul Brown's coaching and kind of running, but, took them to being very relevant and being incredibly good. They ended up with Anthony Munoz, Chris Collinsworth was there, Isaac Curtis, Dan Ross. Ross Browner. They had a bunch of great players. And again, had it not been for a goal line stand by, where he wasn't there yet, but by the team that he ended up with, Maybe. Maybe he's a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP in the same season that he was the NFL MVP. Then you have L.C. Greenwood, 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time first-team All-Pro. And yeah, you can kind of say, well, but he played with Mean Joe Green and was also there with Dwight White and Ernie Holmes. Well, you've got Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen who played side by side. They're in the Hall of Fame, and they even played on that same side of the line. They played side by side. You have Alan Page and Carl Eller played on the same line. They're both in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that should really matter. I mean, L.C. Greenwood was an unbelievable player. And again, 6-time Pro Bowler before it was a popularity contest among the fans. Because at this point now with fans voting, and I'm sorry, the Pro Bowl's basically become a joke. It really has. With fans being able to vote, you can have some players that just keep going in and in and in and in and in, and probably in a season when they really didn't deserve it. So I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on some Pro Bowl alternates that made it in this year. Definitely shouldn't have. And then you have Roger Craig, 3-time Super Bowl champion, scored 3 touchdowns in this Super Bowl. That one right there, it's, Super Bowl 19 against the Dolphins. That set a Super Bowl record, which has only been tied since. Nobody else has scored. Nobody's gotten to 4. Only other people have scored 3. And he was first a fullback. Then he became a halfback. He was the first player to ever have 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving in the same season. Caught 90 passes. I mean, he was kind of the guy that made teams realize maybe running backs can also be a receiving threat. Okay, you had Walter Payton who caught a lot of passes too, but look at the Bears. At that time, Walter Payton was pretty much the only offensive threat they had. So basically it was get him the ball however you possibly can, And, okay, he played with Jerry Rice. He played with Joe Montana. He played a little bit with Steve Young before he ended up leaving. Before he left the 49ers, got to play with him some there as well. And can you talk about the rise of the running back becoming a receiving threat, where you've had LaDainian Tomlinson, I mean, heck, even going back to Brian Westbrook, where it seemed like they were throwing him more than they really were letting him rush. You've got what Christian McCaffrey's doing now, and where you have to be a running back like Derrick Henry to basically be okay with the fact that, well, you're not that good as a receiver either. They want running backs who are also good receivers. Why? That guy right there, and what Bill Walsh was able to use him for. He started it right there. There have been other running backs that were good receivers, and if they had been, with a coach that thought, that might be a lot of fun. I mean, you had Lenny Moore, you had Bobby Mitchell, who was a running back and then switched to receiver. But Roger Craig really was kind of the rise of that. And then of course you have Bill Belichick. So, okay, let's get the scandals out of the way here. So, the filming, the defensive signals, and the Deflategate, whatever you want to call them. I mean, how many times have people said, well, if you're not cheating, you're not trying? Or in the case of where I've grown up in Virginia, when you get around people that are NASCAR fans, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? So, I mean, I loved what Jimmy Johnson said. I think it was on the Pat McAfee show where he said, we even tried, doing the whole, seeing if we could spot the defensive signals. He said, but we weren't that good at it. He said, we spent so much time trying to look at that and not on the other things that we needed to, that we just said, you know what, forget it. We're not good at it, so let's just stop doing it. And, I mean, if you want to get into cheating, I mean, good grief, there were linemen in the 70s that it seemed like every week of the year they had a hand injury or a wrist injury. Why? Because they could wrap those things up and basically turn them into clubs. I mean, really. So you could think of cheating before things got outlawed. I mean, stick 'em. I mean, some of these guys were covering themselves in stick 'em. I mean, Fred Biletnikoff, they said that he could have it coming just about out of everything. He could pull some off his sock or something like that. And he's in the Hall of Fame. And think about this too. When it comes to, as far as stealing signals, sports is one of the most paranoid entities that's around. Everybody thinks somebody's trying to read my lips. Somebody's trying to steal this. Okay. When you watch a game, now granted, let me grab a notebook here. Now granted, most of the time when you see a coach sending in a signal, okay, they'll do this. Now you can say, well, part of it's one, they're trying to make sure that the sound actually gets to their microphone and that the crowd noise isn't too much. So they're doing this, but they're also doing that. Why? They're hoping nobody's reading their lips. Come on. They're hoping that nobody's kind of going, read his lips. Teams aren't hiring professional lip readers and being able to tell what the coach is saying. You have, watch a college game sometime. I mean, you want to talk about ultimate paranoia, because, and I really, really kind of kept an eye on this while I was at Marshall just watching this. So you have a lot of times on the sideline what looks like a dozen, but it may only be 3 to 4 different people who are sending in signals. They're all looking at the quarterback, and they're all, all doing this and doing all these crazy things with their hands when they probably only need to pay attention to one. Why are they doing that? Because they know somebody's probably trying to watch and figure out what their signals are, so then they can tell the defense. Obviously, the coaches are still doing this. They also have, when people are sending in the signals, look sometime and you see these giant, big black banners that somebody then steps behind them and holds up and just blocks them out. Why? Because the coach is up there in the press box, in the coach's box. Oh, they might be looking down with the binoculars trying to see what those signals are and then going, well, they just ran this play when they sent in this crazy signal. So now we know what this means. And they got a 75-yard bomb on us last time this happened. No, they're trying to block that out so nobody can see it. Or also that there might somebody be up in the stands going, I figured out what this is. And then somehow figure out a way to radio a coach in the booth or on the sidelines. I mean, close practices because they think somebody might be trying to come and watch. Basketball, okay? And especially, too, when you are the visiting school, watch them. They don't keep their huddle a lot of times. And I'm talking about definitely on the college level. I really don't know too much with the pros because I haven't watched the NBA in quite some time. Or really watched it. But you see, they'll bring their stools out and come out onto the floor. Why? They don't want to be right behind where the fans are. Now, again, you could say, well, it's a noise level. But also, too, they don't want anybody who might be standing up going, I can read your lips, coach. And then figuring out a way to send it down to the other bench. And again, why do you think the coach drops down in the huddle? Again, it does help that your noise comes up to the players instead of trying to get it to come down to them. Because then you're battling with the noise that is up here. But if you get down behind these tall players, somebody may not be able to read your lips. And you also have people on each team that their sole job during a timeout is to stand there and watch the other bench. Are they trying to see? Maybe I saw what they just tried to draw up there. I think I saw it. Now, I do know one role is to actually see which starting five or which five is now going to come out on the floor, because maybe you do need to make a quick change, with matchups and stuff like that. But again, you have somebody who's watching that timeout the whole time. They are just standing there watching. Baseball and softball. When a pitcher and a catcher go to talk to each other, it's behind their gloves. It's behind their gloves. If they didn't think the people weren't trying to read their lips, why are they talking like this? Because now you are blocking your sound. So if the crowd is too loud, well, now you're going to have to scream while you're like that. And when a coach comes out to talk to them, now they're talking like this too, because they don't want anybody to try and read their lips. Shortstop and second go to talk to each other. Oh yeah, hands behind the gloves. We can't have anybody possibly trying to read our lips. Runners at second, they're watching what the catcher's doing. And so you'll see runners at second waving like this or waving like this. And the fun part is when a team thinks they have it figured out, And okay, so right-handed batter's up, I'm at second, and I wave this arm showing, hey, it's coming inside on you, and the pitch goes outside. I'm like, oh, guess wrong, sorry about that. And actually, I'm not going to mention which team or which coach, but when I was at Marshall, there was an opposing coach and team within our same conference, again, not going to say who, that when they were in the third base coach's box, obviously with their team up at the plate, they thought they could really spot pitches. And so they would try to yell either their first or last name of the player at the plate to say if it's coming in or out. And I remember Coach Stanton asking about that one time because the players were all going, why do we hear the coach yelling their first name or yelling their last name? What is happening over there? And she explained it. And they're all going, whoa, okay. And then she said, do you want me all to try that? And they go, no. Now instead of being focused on what you initially called and then, watching the picture, now we're trying to listen to see if you said my first or my last name. I mean, that's and so many times the coach would say it at basically the last second. Basically the last second. So at this point now, this pitcher is, the ball might be halfway there and you're looking at it and now suddenly you hear a name and you have to go, wait a minute, oh, inside. I just struck out because it went outside and I, swung and missed. And I'll say this, they weren't that successful when he was there. Sorry, I just said he, but I tried to keep that out, but I did just say he. They weren't that successful at that time. They weren't constantly winning conference titles. They weren't going to the NCAA tournament every year. So was this working? Probably not. And so everybody's trying to figure out something. Okay. And, I don't like the line, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I really don't like that. I feel like that's just an unbelievable excuse to try and use. But again, if you are somebody, okay, for anybody who might be if you're thinking you're on the moral high ground, especially if you're one of the Hall of Fame voters, if you are holding out Belichick and Kraft because of those couple of cheating scandals, you know what? You better never cheat at anything in your life, ever. You better not be playing a board game with your kids and play Monopoly and you go to pull money out because you're the banker and, oh, I accidentally took 2 100s instead of 1. You better never cheat at anything if you're going to try and stand on that moral high ground. And I better never hear you say, hey, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, when your favorite driver or your favorite team gets busted doing something. Okay? Just please stay away from that. Another thing that I wonder if people thought about with Bill Belichick is he possibly going to come back and coach? Because I know the Hall of Fame wasn't exactly happy when Joe Gibbs came back. Now, granted, he'd already been in the Hall of Fame for a while, but and this year too, when the whole bank of coaches who got fired were let go, people were still thinking, is there the chance that somebody might be able to pull Bill Belichick away from UNC? And yes, he's still coaching, but it is at the collegiate level. So if he is done with the pros, I mean, why not? But also too, I mean, these people are competitors. Joe Gibbs didn't have to come back, but he was given an opportunity, and I'm sure part of him was going, I got a little itch. I think I can do this. And I mean, it happens, but allowing a coach to be eligible after just 1 year, I mean, is that really that much of a break? I mean, think about this. Okay. Mike McCarthy. Let's say he had won 4 Super Bowls while he was with the Packers. Let's say he'd even won another one while he was with the Cowboys. And then, retires or whatever. So he was gone from coaching for a year. What if the Hall of Fame said, that guy, we are voting for that guy, he's going in, and then suddenly he just got hired again. Now he's going to the Steelers. What do you do? I don't know if that 1 year is enough. It might need to be a little longer. But again, these are things that are going to have to be revisited. I'm sure the Hall of Fame committee now is going to look at all kinds of things after all the uproar that has happened with this. And another one, maybe this is just being a little funny, but Are they thinking, well, if we keep Belichick and Kraft out for a couple of years, then when Brady's eligible, we can throw them all in together and we will just have this enormous New England Patriots Hall of Fame week? Now, the problem with that is, okay, everybody went nuts over him not going in this year. If he doesn't go in again next year, because remember, Brady's not going to have his name come up until 27. His last season was 22. So he's not going to be able to go on the ballot until the fall of 27, which means then he'd be in the class of 28 if they don't hold these cheating scandals against him and actually put him in first ballot, which they should. Brady should be first ballot Hall of Famer. So you're going to have to hold out Belichick and Kraft one more time. And then, I don't know. I'm not in the room. I don't know what's going on. But I don't agree with having the coaches and the contributors being put in the same group as the senior nominees. And I mean, because I'm wearing a Sterling Sharp jersey who got in as a senior nominee this past year. I was so happy to finally see him go in, that he finally got his due. I was there, group of friends. We went there because, Anthony and I got a few videos actually with Anthony, the Packers owner. And the moment we found out he was in, we were already texting each other like, we're going, right? We got to go. And for me personally, if this one gets in, Roger Craig, I got to go back again next year. I just hope too that with the class that we'll find out about tonight, when they get in, that there's not just this stain on it because Belichick, or maybe Kraft, but at least definitely Bill Belichick, did not get in. So I think Drew Brees and Larry Fitzgerald have got to be locks. From there, I'm not really sure. But I just hope there's not this stain on this class because Belichick got left off. Another thing that I heard Jimmy Johnson talk about that I definitely agreed with, as far as, somebody trying to say, oh, well, but Belichick, was he really all that successful because he had Tom Brady? Come on. George Halas had Sid Luckman. Paul Brown had Otto Graham. Vince Lombardi had Bart Starr. Don Shula had Bob Greasy. Chuck Noll had Terry Bradshaw. Bill Walsh had Joe Montana. Jimmy Johnson even said it himself. He had Troy Aikman. Most of the coaches who win multiple championships have got that one quarterback that they had for a while who's one of the greatest of all time. And all those quarterbacks and coaches that I named are all in the Hall of Fame. Now, one coach, I've already brought up his name, that did a pretty darn good job with 3 different ones, was Joe Gibbs. I mean, nobody's sitting here saying Joe Theismann should be in the Hall of Fame. I love Doug Williams, but unfortunately, he's not a Hall of Famer. And Mark Rippon, not a Hall of Famer. But the 3 of them did have great times in Washington, and especially that one season that they were able to win a Super Bowl. So congratulations, Joe Gibbs, on being able to pull that one off. And George Seifert, he won it with Joe Montana, and then he won it with Steve Young. Again, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. 2 different guys, but 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So that shouldn't be part of the argument either. Belichick had Brady. So what? Look at the other Hall of Fame coaches that are in and who they had at quarterback. Especially if they were somebody who won multiple titles. But honestly, I love Bill Belichick, okay? Whatever you want to say about the fact that he wasn't friendly during his press conferences, so what? I mean, he doesn't have to sit here and completely spill his guts about everything, what they're planning, somebody's injuries. I mean, he doesn't have to do that. I know. I'm a journalist. Trust me, it would be an absolute pain that I'm sitting here hoping to write this story, or I have to write this story, and I'm not getting squat from the coach. I know that can be a pain. But look, as somebody who watched and paid a lot of attention to when the NFL celebrated, and especially NFL Films and NFL Network celebrated the 100th anniversary, the 100th season, listening to this man talk was unbelievable, was absolutely incredible. And his football knowledge, I would love to sit and talk, especially football history, with Bill Belichick. that'd be one of those where somebody'd have to say, hey, you've been here for 12 hours. Either one of you want to finally go to sleep. I could listen to it all day. As somebody who also appreciates and loves the history of the game, I could talk with him all day because he understands it. I mean, why do you think NFL Network and NFL Films brought him in to discuss all this stuff? He could talk about players from the 1920s. I mean, they didn't bring him in to just say, hey, why don't you talk about Lawrence Taylor? Why don't you talk about Brady and Gronkowski? No, he was talking about guys who played at the earliest days of the NFL, about the coaches who coached in the earliest days of the NFL. And he didn't sound like somebody who, I just read the Wikipedia article before I came in here. No, he knew because he was a student of the history of the game, and I love that. I absolutely love that. So, yes, I'm on the same boat that it's a shame that Belichick did not get in this year. I mean, I really hope that if I had to pick just one out of these three, I hope this one goes in. But I love L.C. Greenwood. I feel like he should have been in already. Ken Anderson also had a great career. But that's why, again, I'll say I don't agree with the coaches and the contributors being put in. You've got to vote for only just 3 out of this group. I feel like you should have the senior nominees and then them. Separate them. You know, they have to be separated. I really think that. And I can't wait to see who goes in. We find out tonight. Yes. And yes, this man should have gone in. Now, no matter how much I love Roger Craig, believe me, with these two going up against each other, if I was a voter, his name would have been at the top of the list. And then I'd have put Craig second. And then, unfortunately, out of these two, sorry, Bobby Combs, if you end up watching this video, I would have gone with L.C. Greenwood over Ken Anderson, but it wouldn't have been by much. It would not have been by much. So, and again, that's why I think they should definitely be separated. But I'm not naive enough or biased enough to think that Roger Craig should get in over Bill Belichick. Now, Belichick, he's not going to be off the ballot. He's going to have more opportunities. Craig coming in as a senior nominee, you don't know. If he doesn't make it in this year, will he be a senior nominee next year? Will it be 2 years down the line? We don't know. We don't know how that goes because there have been some guys, I think last year, I know Jimmy Patton was one of the senior nominees, and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but it was two other guys along with Sterling Sharp, and they didn't get in. And they weren't back on the ballot this year by the senior committee. Because now it was Craig, Greenwood, and Anderson. I would love to sit in the Hall of Fame room and listen to the discussions. It'd be incredible. But there may be some changes that need to come. And yeah, having only 50 people that vote is a little strange, especially when you consider that the Baseball Hall of Fame has a lot. They have at least twice as much, if not 3 to 4 times as much. I mean, because I want to say that you see guys like that picked up 100 and some odd votes, you know, that got in or even that didn't get in. But you know, there might be some changes coming from that. But again, I hope that when we find out who the class is tonight for this coming year, I really hope there's not a stain on it. I hope that people think it's not legitimate. And for all the people, especially the hot take artists who are saying, that's it, Pro Football Hall of Fame's a joke, it doesn't mean anything anymore, I'm not going anymore. Come on. Really? Let's calm down a little bit. Let's breathe. It'll come back. And it'll be great. It's always been great. I love going there, and I'll keep going. Don't care. I love the history of the game. And this man will eventually get in, okay? And like I said, maybe we'll see it in a couple more years down the road where it's Belichick, it's Kraft, and it's Brady, and you will see nothing but Patriots fans filling Canton for that entire week. We'll see how it goes. I honestly hope they don't hold at least Belichick out for that much longer, because then people are really going to start to lose their minds if he doesn't make it in next year. But we'll see. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed this. Let's, who do you all think? I know it's not going to be too much longer until we find out who goes in, but who do you all think is going to get in? And plus, out of the senior nominees, which ones do you think might get in? Do you think it's going to be Roger Craig, L.C. Greenwood, or Ken Anderson? The first 1,000 player, 6-time Pro Bowler, and 4-time Super Bowl champion, 1981 NFL MVP. Who do you think's getting in out of this group, if any of them? And who do you think will be the others to make it in the Hall of Fame this year? We'll find out. Stay tuned to the Halls of History, because I'm going to have a bunch of little Super Bowl fun facts I'm going to be looking up and putting up as well with the Super Bowl coming up. You can check me out not only here on YouTube, but on TikTok at the Halls of History, as well as on Twitter at ScottHall82. So check out what I'm gonna have coming up. And I know I got away from my Did You Know draft videos. Those are going to be coming back, especially with now after the Super Bowl. The next thing's going to be the draft. So, free agency, but then the next big thing really too is going to be the draft. So those videos are going to be coming back. So remember, hit the subscribe button. You can always tune in at any other point here on the Halls of History, catch up on past videos. Always glad to have everybody along. Love talking NFL history. Come with your comments below, but hey, let's try and keep it civil here, folks. We don't need to call anybody any awful names or anything like that. Again, let's keep it civil. I love discussion. Discussion is not screaming at one another. Discussion is calmly talking. Okay? Let's keep it that way. But thanks again for tuning in here on the Halls of History.